We're now going to cross to our reporter Samkele Maseko, who's just outside the ANC provincial offices. Now, Samkele, a very good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I mean, we've obviously seen these protests that have erupted across, KZN and in various pockets. But looking at the impact that it has had on day 3, what's transpiring on your end?
Essentially, Durban is a bit calm today as opposed to the events of yesterday, which were happening in around the city, and you go to far-flung areas like after the Mvoti Toll Plaza as you enter KwaDukuza in Stanger, the trucks had barricaded roads. It was even worse in the Musadladla region in Umhlathuze municipality, where essentially truck drivers had barricaded roads within that specific municipality. But we do know that the governing party in the province will be holding a PEC meeting tomorrow afternoon at 6 o'clock. They will start with the Provincial Working Committee meeting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon to receive updates on the situation in and around the province and also to deal with organizational matters. But in essence, the governing party's leadership in the province, the provincial chairperson and the provincial secretary, are currently engaged in a meeting with the ANC's top brass leadership, the National Executive Committee, providing an update to the NEC on the situation in KwaZulu-Natal and on the incarceration, the aftermath of the incarceration of former President Jacob Zuma. You saw that in Moy River, where our colleague J.D. Liposa is at, they were burning trucks and cars overnight yesterday, and others were looting shops in areas like in KwaMashu, in Inanda, looting boxer shops.
Samkele, as we obviously await the Concord ruling, which is set for Monday, involving former President Jacob Zuma, we're also looking at the costs associated with the protests and the worrisome scenes that are also emerging. People obviously wondering if it's going to escalate come Monday. Looking at the implications thereof, what is national government saying? What is the provincial government saying? It is also a COVID-19 lockdown where there are regulations involved. So as we see these scenes unfolding and escalating, what is expected on that front?
Essentially what is expected, we saw the Premier of the province, Hlezi Galala, in a video clip that was sent out on the Twitter profile of the provincial government in KwaZulu-Natal, done by his spokesperson in his office, Lennox Baba. So they were essentially saying that they are calling for calm in the province as there is an aftermath on the arrest of former President Jacob Zuma. In fact, on Monday, Liesl, just to have a point of correction, it is not a constitutional court judgment on the rescission application of the former president. It is set down to be heard on Monday, where there will be arguments presented by the senior counsel, Advocate Dalimpofu, representing former President Jacob Zuma, to the Constitutional Court, and there will be counter-arguments, heads of arguments, that will also be presented by Advocate Thembeka Ncugayitobi, representing the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, and will probably have the Helen Suzman Foundation, which will also be providing its own heads of arguments should they feel there is a need to join that rescission application to oppose it, just like they did oppose his stay of execution of arrest at the Pietermaritzburg Regional High Court with AFRI Forum as well. So essentially on Monday, on the 12th of July, Concord will sit down to hear the application for rescission by former President Jacob Zuma, led by Advocate Dalimpofu, with the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, led by Senior Counsel Advocate Thembeka Ncugayitobi, opposing that application on Monday. So judgment may be on the same day. It may also be reserved by the Constitutional Court, which is essentially the first application of its kind at the Constitutional Court, where legal opinion makers and those who are policy and those who are judiciary gurus or scholars of the judiciary, they were essentially divided on this particular matter, some even claiming that the Constitutional Court would not even entertain a frivolous application by former President Jacob Zuma on the rescission application. But to their dismay, it was granted by the Constitutional Court. And also, you'd heard the arguments by people like Lawson Naidu of KZN saying that such an application does not mean that the former president still does not have to admit or present himself to a correctional services facility. He was proven to be correct, as that order that he must present himself to a correctional services facility and that the Minister of Police and the police commissioner must arrest him was still true, and effectively led to the former president being held in custody. In custody, I repeat, as opposed to the view that he handed himself over because the former president had missed Sunday's deadline to hand himself over to a correctional services facility and to the police for processing.
Samkele, thank you very much for just clarifying the narratives around that question as well. I think just to wrap up this conversation, we're looking at the protests emerging in KZN, in former President Jacob Zuma's name. Is this going to help or damage his situation going forward?
The judiciary is independent and is not swayed by any political theatrics or I saw a tweet earlier on by the likes of Sandile Songezo rather, who was saying that South Africans will not be held hostage by a situation where there is engineered social unrest within the province in order to try to get the former president out. You saw a situation as well where the state was trying to stamp its authority on those whom have been found wanting by the judiciary of the country. So in essence, one may not say this will hamper or this will harm or this will assist former President Jacob Zuma's case, because it's an unprecedented judgment that has come to see a former head of state who had just exited office about 3-4 years ago, being incarcerated in democratic South Africa. But they always say, and a signal, as analysts have said, was strongly sent by the judiciary, that no one is above the law. Even if you've been in the commanding heights, you've been at the top of the political and governance food chain, you are not above the law.
All right, Samkele Maseko, we're going to leave the conversation there. Thank you very much for giving us your analysis.